Why haven't I done this sooner? People comment on my Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 helicopter videos and they say, hands down the best helicopter flight dynamics are in X-Plane 12. So here I am, no more excuses. I finally picked up X-Plane 12 on special from Steam, and I went straight to xplane.org to buy the recent Alpine Studio AS350 pack, something I really wish was an MSFS as well. Now, this isn't a review of that high quality product. Instead, this is all about my first impressions of what it's like to fly rotary wing in X-Plane. I'll be comparing hover performance, cruise, landing, and I'll do a quick check with the MSFS 2024 default H125. I am excited to try all of this out, so let's fly. And it's a beautiful morning in Salzburg, Austria, with real-world weather in, as of a couple of days ago. Nice cool morning. And here's our Alpine Studio AS350B2. The reason that I actually wanted to get X-Plane 12 so I could actually fly this very aircraft, a special one in my life. It is the first helicopter I ever took a flight in. Not this particular one, but it's the first type of helicopter I was a passenger in, and I've been keen to get this into a flight simulator ever since. So let's hop on board and see what this is like to work with. Well, here we are. This scene is quite pretty. There's the Alps surrounding us and having a bit of a look around the cabin. I've got to say, some of these finer details look a bit low resolution compared to maybe what we're accustomed to in the latest generation of add-ons. For instance, I can see a bit of polygon edges around here and maybe around some of the dials there as well. With that said, the actual modeling is nice. I mean, there's lots of detail on that console down there. I like that. And outside, I do notice that there's a nice flex in the tail skids, but we just see maybe not the highest resolution again when we're looking in here. I hope I'm not being unfair by highlighting things like I can just see the pixelization there. The rivets do seem to be models because they're just picking up the light there, I think you can see. With that said, again, nice modeling in the rotor hub system there. I've got to say, I have not got used to these X-Plane cameras at all, and it pains me that I can't fly more smoothly around looking at these things. But the problem seems to be that you cannot have more than one input being triggered by a single output on your controller. So the pan view in this camera and the pan view in another camera are different inputs, and you can't have them being fed by the same output from your stick. Most frustrating. Well, let's get this thing started up. I have to use the head tracking because, as far as I can tell, the right click to pan the camera around in the cockpit doesn't work anymore. Maybe it's got something to do with this add-on. I don't know. Kind of annoying, if I'm honest. There'll be someone here who knows why that is, that the keyboard controls to, I'm just going up, down, left and right now, don't work inside this add-on. Probably something that I'm doing wrong, so I'll welcome your input on that. And the Alpine Studios add-on comes actually with 3 different variants of the AS350. This is the B2, you get a B1 as well, and a BA, all slightly different inside here. And they do give a nice PDF rundown of the differences in the panel on each machine and a visual guide to starting it up. So I'll run that now. External power comes on and we start seeing things coming to life up here. That's good. Battery voltage is 25 or more. That looks fine. Generator switch can now come on. On you come. Love this old 1980s switch gear. These big chunky buttons. I love it. That warning panel looks more or less what it's supposed to look like at this point. So that is good. On this helicopter, we have locks here. So if I'm just using my joystick now, nothing happens. Unlock, and now there we go. The pedals also are working. I'll just unlock the collective at this point, and then that can come up and down. Now, notice here with the AS350, we've got a fuel control lever over here. There's not a twist grip on the collective, so this is a different system. This is more similar to the Llama era of aerospatial aircraft. So that's what happens there. That's the starter button on the top of that stalk there for the fuel control. So we start with that fully aft, and we'll use that button later. That's the rotor brake fully forward and off, and that's the fuel flow fully forward and on. That is correct. Warning light test. on, and the fire comes on 1 second later, correct? I've just got a test here on the NG, Delta NG. Hold this button down. We go up and show all the characters illuminate. And there's the full value there. And I release that and that all goes back down again as well. So that's our engine speed there. That's our engine temperature here. And that's our torque over on the left. So we'll just deal with these as we go. Gyro compass comes on and that moves. Good. Okay, that looks great. The Alpine Studio does have this handling wheels thing here. This is like almost that. Oh, I'm actually moving. So I can reposition the helicopter using this, which is what I've done. I've pointed it more or less into the wind, which is coming from the east over there. There's the windsock. I go over there. We can just see that. So we're pointing more or less into the wind, which I achieved with this controller here, which is very convenient. I like this. Something else maybe I could have done earlier was take all those tie downs off, which I can achieve with this here off, and then that indicator's removed down there as well. So ready to start up. So let's get the anti-coal lights on. In fact, they already were. It looks like it's remembered the previous settings there. Maybe I could have checked that earlier. So anti-coals are on. Now the 2 fuel pumps. Get a sound there. And we want 30 seconds on here. You would have triggered this to start it, but it was at about 15 seconds past there. So wait until 15 seconds too. Then we'll know that the fuel system is fully pressurized. We've got fuel and oil temperatures and pressures over here on this area of the cockpit. All right, there's my cameras on, and we have passed 30 seconds there. So what we're doing here is I've got the fuel control on this lever here, so I can just control that like that. What's going to happen here is we're going to hold down the starter, and we're going to see the turbine starting to turn on here. Then we'll introduce fuel. We'll monitor the T4, which is the temperature in the kind of the 4th stage, but that's what they use in this particular model of Turbomecha turbine. And then I gradually keep moving the fuel forward. So I'll just try and have all of that nicely coordinated. Okay. Start. 10%. Now we introduce fuel. That's halfway on my lever already, so I just don't think it's quite mapped as I'd expect. 20%, we're waiting for the rotor to start turning. There it goes. And now we just monitor the T4 and make sure we don't exceed. We've got a transient limit there marked in red, keeping an eye on that. It's nice and cold outside today, so that helps. It's only, I think it's -2 degrees. Freezing morning in Salzburg. And there we go, that's a successful start. It's manual, unlike the H125, where we just flick the switch and it does everything for us. That's how it works in here. And now what we do is we just advance to get up to 70% here on the RPM. I'm just slowly edging forward that lever, the fuel control, and we're looking for these coming out. At 70%, we want all of these out except for the horn and the pitot. So it looks like we've achieved that. Love that sound. Nice sounds in this. And if I turn on the horn now, woof, there it is, it's loud. So I'll just take that off again. We'll wait till we get up to 350 over here on the rotor speed, which is about there. Let's get that horn on. Push the fuel control all the way forward, and it looks like we've started up. We could do a few more checks now by cycling the fuel pumps and just monitoring the effects here on the panel, but I think we'll be all good for our purposes today. Maybe a bit of a mono feeling in that exterior audio, but again, that's not what we're here for. We're flying it from the inside, not the outside. So let's predict what's going to happen here. Small headwind. So I think I'm going to need right cyclic and aft cyclic with the AS350B2. And I'm going to now start lifting collective with some right pedal in as well. You'll see the RPM come up on the NG. As I... Now, do I have the collective locked? Yes, I do. There we go. So there's something that I'm not used to. So collective now unlocked. There we go. Try that again. That's better. Concentrating, looking out. Too much pedal. There's our lift there. And I'll tell you what, this is very easy to hover. Looking out, trying to minimize the movements on the cyclic. And we can keep our position within a few feet here, I think. I haven't done too much with the controls, I've just made them one-to-one, the sensitivity that is. So let's just try a little pedal turn here. How much altitude does that take? None? Didn't feel that I went down there at all. I put a bit more energy into the power pedal to turn right there. Bit dramatic there. That was my fault on the cyclic. Well, that was not the pedal reaction. But overall, this is very stable for me. Just allow it to just creep forward a bit. Let's get out onto that taxi line there. The airport traffic here in Salzburg is quite impressive in X-Plane 12. Higher quality than what I thought it might be. It looks actually pretty good. Bit of a glitch there in the horizon once in a while. Not quite sure what's causing that. So onto the taxi line. Do another pedal turn here. Now we've got a tailwind. That's where we just took off from. So the biggest difference so far from helicopters in MSFS 2024 is that the collective is much more stable. I don't have to... I was just trying to keep on the taxi line there when I couldn't see it, and then I lost my position, so I'll just fix that. There we go. Through this whole time, I've hardly touched the collective. So I can see why people would find this challenging going to MSFS 2024, because I feel you're having to chase that collective a lot more. This feels really, really stable. So if I just pull up on the collective a millimeter, or maybe half a centimeter. Nice. Down by the same amount. Yes, very predictable. Liking that. So as a hovering exercise, this is very easy. Far less chasing of the collective than what you might have to do in MSFS 2024. I am finding the pedals quite stable, surprisingly stable. Too stable? Not sure. I don't have AS350 flight time, so I can't comment. I just remember that when I did my hovering lesson in the in the Cabri G2, the pedals were less predictable than the simulator, but the collective was more predictable than the simulator. So here in the X-Plane AS350B2, I'm finding the collective more predictable and the pedals more predictable. I just wonder if this is a little bit too easy, but then again, we do get used to our different simulators. This is very nice, just walking down here. Gathering a little bit of speed there, nose up, stop that. I feel I'm just doing nothing with the collective, it's just flying itself. Very stable, predictable collective response. Bit of a tailwind as we do this leg on the taxi, and therefore needed a little bit more collective there. That feels like a good, sensible, responsive situation for me to be in. Oh, I've added too much though, look at me climb up here. It's a bit hard for me to get the view the way that I want it. I want to zoom out more, maybe just a couple of little steps more, so I can see down more easily. But I'm just finding it a bit difficult in X-Plane to get that right. This feels like it's the maximum it will zoom out, and I can't move the seat back because that's frozen for some reason. Alright, onto the runway. No one coming in there. We're clear over here. And we will get to the top of the green torque band, arc I should say, nose down. Gathering speed very quickly. There's 60 knots. We can just let the nose come up now. Very predictable and easy. Forward pressure required on the cyclic. I could try and trim that out now. But I'm just going to do a short circuit and come around and see what the approach is like as well. Okay, 100 knots. Let's see if I can get it down onto the numbers. That's going to entail getting rid of quite a lot of energy here. So I'll go down on the cyclic, on the collective, sorry. And there's our rotor slap happening there. 80 knots. Collective all the way down. Not how you'd want to do it in real life. What I'm noting here, I did this deliberately. I thought I would be getting into a situation where I had a bit too much energy, stored energy in the rotor system. I'm not overspeeding the rotor at all. Is that expected behavior? I would have thought I might have a bit more of a struggle reducing the rotor speed there. And so it looks like I'm going to achieve this. What do people think about that? The conservation of energy in the rotor system there. I would have thought I would have oversped it coming down that fast. So I've got about, I think about 2.1 tons out of 2.5 loaded in. So I just would have thought that might have been a bit more of a challenge to actually achieve that approach without overspeeding the rotor. Okay, let's try something I've not really practiced. Cut in the fuel. We are going to try... I'll have to turn that horn off though, that's going to drive me crazy and not do that though. Right, so there we go. Bit disorganised, much too fast at this point. So best climb speed is 65 on the AS350. So lowering the collective all the way. We're a bit under speed on the blade right now, just from the audio. I'm going too fast, nose up. Now the blade's getting a bit faster. That feels better. Auto-rotating down we go. Flare to get rid of some of this energy. Cushioning with the with the collective. Not sure if I would have passed that in a test if I was being tested on it. But I guess I didn't actually crash the helicopter. Same airport, same weather, newer version of the same helicopter, different simulator. And as usual for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, large jets inappropriately parked in the general aviation area. Come on, MSFS, get that sorted out, please. Let's go. So I have switched on the magic on button, and we are ready to go. This helicopter is loaded up to be about 2.1 tons, like the last one was. So let's see what it is like to fly. Head tracking on, please. Let's just get that zoom out very slightly there. I've got that on my thumb, much easier to control. Okay, right cyclic, aft cyclic, right pedal. Looking out, pulling collective, pulling collective, pulling collective, getting light, up on one skid, there we go, not the best pickup, and already I can just feel a bit of uncertainty in the collective. So now it wants to go down, so I pull up slightly. Now it wants to go up too high, I push down slightly. Now it looks like we're going to hit the ground, and we did. So this is exactly what I was saying. The collective is, compared to my limited experience in a Gembel Cabri G2, MSFS 2024 is really loose in the collective and possibly in the ground effect. Sensitive in the cyclic axis, that's, I think, probably okay. It's going to do a little pedal turn here. We lose a bit of height. I'm surprised the Alpine Studios didn't do that. So if I can get it stabilized here, we'll try that one more time. Right. That's adding power pedal, but I think I also added collective as well, and now we're much too high. Much harder to control your height off the ground in MSFS 2024, no doubt about that. I think it's impossible as flight simmers for us to say that one flight model or one set of flight dynamics is better than the other. You see this a lot. People grow comfortable with the simulator, DCS, X-Plane, MSFS, whatever. Then they go to another one and they really notice the changes. These things are actually not objective. Sure, you can get an aircraft to fly by the performance numbers, according to the weights and the temperatures and everything else. But there's that certain unquantifiable feel. We know that the ground effect has been an issue in MSFS and continues to be. I haven't tried Sim Update 5 Beta yet. I've heard there's been some improvement there. Or another way to look at this point that I'm making here is that you can get used to a simulator and its quirks. Maybe that's what's happened to me with MSFS 2024. Although, you know, I'm trying to be honest here and I'm pointing out the things that are different. I'm noticing a bit more sensitivity in that cyclic roll axis. You can see the machine rolling right and left just as we proceed along here. The pedals feel okay in MSFS. The collective is concerning. It's about as polite as I can put it. Well, the world does look a bit different, doesn't it, in this different simulator? It's a little bit more gritty, a bit more real, I think. A bit less pretty in some sense, a bit more variety. So what's happening here? I've got 80 knots on, I'm a little bit fast, but let's see what happens here when I go to idle. Losing rotor energy in the rotor now, lowering the collective. It's not even all the way down. 80 knots too fast, 90 knots even. Now the rotor speed is coming up. I'll counteract with raising collective. It seems to be hanging on to a huge amount of energy, the H125, the Asobo machine in MSFS 2024. Autorotation does not feel realistic. Holding on to too much energy. At least I've oversped the rotors. That didn't seem possible with the Alpine Studios machine. Let's flare up, lose that bit of speed, raise the collective now, and cushion it down here for our landing. It's actually raising. It's rising up there at the end. I feel like I could have almost hovered that in. So conclusion, as pretty as this Asobo H125 is, this auto rotation performance doesn't strike me as realistic. So let's get back to X-Plane 12. So just air taxiing back over to where we started from. Just trying to keep that helipad locked there. With the Tobii eye tracker 5, I'm not getting eye tracking in X-Plane 12 at the moment. Probably something I've done wrong in the configuration. So I've got head tracking only, but I think I'm coping with this all right. There's our H. Looking out now. Cancelling that translational movement. Nice. Got that sense of the rear of the skid touching and then the front of the skid touching. Like that a lot. My piloting maybe not perfect there, but quite happy with the way that handled. I really enjoyed this experience with the Alpine Studio AS350. Graphics quality perhaps not what we've come to expect from a top-line product in MSFS, but such attention to detail across 3 different models of the classic, incredibly popular line of helicopters. The procedures are nicely documented and the systems seem to be of impressive fidelity. It is such a joy to fly, and I just love that confidence that with the collective stability, the helicopter is going to stay where I want it to stay. Maybe that's got something to do with the simulator's native modelling of ground effect. Whatever it is, it's working really nicely. X-Plane itself, I love how quick it is to start it up. I love that I can jump in and resume my previous flight. I very much like the built-in flight recorder. I'm just finding the cameras incredibly frustrating right now, especially because I haven't figured out how to map them properly with my controllers. My point of view, there is real merit and enjoyment to be had here in X-Plane for helicopter enthusiasts. I'll try to check back in when I can, especially with exciting releases like this Alpine Studios pack. Check out my channel for lots more helicopter content in MSFS 2024, and I hope I'll see you again real soon. See ya!